off. Welcome and hello to everybody joining us. I'm Whynde, and I have the honor of moderating this amazing panel. I am a longtime business architecture practitioner, thought leader, educator, specifically focusing on leveraging business architecture for strategy and transformation. I'm author of the book Strategy to Reality, co-founder of the Guild, and global chair of the Women in Architecture, or WIA, global initiative, which is a supporting partner of the event that we are all here at today. So just a huge thank you to Switch On for creating such an incredible event, all the people that joined, and for creating this very important space for conversation. So this panel is going to talk about how can the industry promote and inspire women to become architects? What barriers need to be broken, if any? And this is a particularly important topic because statistics tell us that about 13% of enterprise architect roles are held by women, right? So we have some opportunity there. And we also know the tremendous power of diversity in organizations and for the architecture profession as a whole. So we're going to have the panel introduce themselves, and it's a really impressive lineup here that I'm looking at. We range from newer to the discipline to very experienced, many years. Between us, we cover every single architecture discipline, and we're not only practitioners but also leaders in the field. So Lisa, let's start with you for some introductions.
Hi, everybody. My name is Lisa Lilley, and I'm a technical architect at CNA. I'm the lead steward for UI UX technical discipline, and I'm a partner steward in the integrations technical discipline. My background started in insurance product, evolved into increasingly more technical roles, and then I moved into a software engineering role, and ultimately landed this current position in our enterprise architecture team, Team Grit, where we build global, reusable, innovative technologies. And that was about a year and a half ago. I'm passionate about sharing my experiences and doing what I can to encourage others, women and allies, to keep learning, being brave, and paying it forward. I live in Seattle, and I spend my free time sailing with my husband, Simon.
Welcome. Excellent. Prathibha.
Hey, everyone. Thank you for this opportunity. Great to be part of this excellent panel here. Prathibha Prabakaran. I've been in the technology industry for about 20 years now. The first 5 years, I was a software engineer building systems, deploying them. And in the last 15 years, have been associated with the financial services and the insurance sector and helping build primarily data and analytics capability, all the way from strategy to execution, and in my recent roles, actually heading up the data architecture practice. Looking forward to an interesting conversation here with the ladies. Thank you.
Excellent. Geeta.
Absolutely. Thank you. Such a great pleasure to be on this panel. It's a privilege to be really with these great women. So Geeta Pyne, I am currently the chief architect at TIAA, which is a company 100 plus years old, Teachers Insurance and Annuity Association, with a mission to basically make our customers and clients to retire with dignity and have enough lifetime income, right? I started, my journey has been software engineer by education, computer science engineer, and started with engineering discipline. I pretty much touched, I would say, all aspects of traditionally what you will call IT, from web application to ERP to anything in between. But believe it or not, I have been a architect, officially having an architect title and enterprise architect title for 2 decades now, from March 2003 to now 20 plus years in various roles. But my passion is really how do you demystify what is architecture? How do you bring more people to really make architecture accessible for everyone? This is not something like ivory tower thing. This is actually real. And Whynde, to your book, Strategy to Reality, that's my mission. How do you make strategy to execution? EA is about enabling that strategy to execution capability. And I'm very looking forward to this. And thank you for having us on this conversation. Such an important topic.
Wonderful. Well said. Welcome all. And for everyone that's out there, please, by all means, put any questions or comments in the chat. We'll have a very rich conversation here, but we'll do our very best to get to anything that you might want to share or ask the panel here. So let's start with the current state here. And Geeta, we'll start with you. Reflecting on where we are today. So the question is, why are there fewer women in architecture? What do you think some of the root causes or maybe even some of the barriers are to women entering the field or staying in the field?
Yeah, I kept reflecting on this a lot. And as a matter of fact, even my chief architect role at TIAA, I am the only woman leading that architecture team of several men across all the BUs, right? So my opinion is, I think number one is there is not enough role model, right? Just by the nature of it, I think we don't see that many, right? So just people don't get talk about it. But I think the bigger, I would say, what I have seen from my experience is just not understanding what is an enterprise architect truly mean, right? And many a time people get afraid about like some of the, I would say that you have to be only technically very, very strong in one particular domain in order to go up the rank and in order to be an EA. So I think making it accessible, demystifying that there are different paths to go to an EA, and you could be a subject matter expert in a business analyst role to all the way up to a deep technical engineer, and anything in between has a path to go to a different aspect. So all the dimension, perspectives, and viewpoints of EA role is not understood. So one of our job, like I think day to day, is always educating every company I go. What does it mean to be EA? Everybody starts with the technology bits and bytes, right? I think that's the one thing. And the hurdle, another, I would say, is just giving people a chance. How many people are taking a chance on really, hey, let's try it out, right? Somebody giving them a chance and opportunity, because this is a wide gamut, right? There's a wide range. You can bring somebody for who is very sharp and innovating and incubation ideas, bring that engineer along to get like experiment with innovation, while you have more established seasoned people to keep the business running, maybe run the more standard stuff, right? So I think those are the some of the choices, and we'll talk later. Maybe also the focus on the soft skills, focus on the art of negotiation. How do you negotiate? How do you go by having those tough conversations? I think we don't see that happening as a discipline teaching, so that you will see more people coming, not just women. I think just in general diversity in architecture happening.
Love it. Great points. Prathibha, what do you think?
Yeah, agree with every single point that Geeta is making here. But Whynde, you also mentioned that there's only 12 to 13% of women in our architecture roles. If we step back from that, actually women in technology itself is roughly about 30%, right? So the funnel coming into the technology field itself is a very small field. And I'm comparing and contrasting with some of my peers and even my own journey, right? So I started off as a software engineer and I wore a few different hats, venturing into a business analyst hat, product owner, and then dawn on roles to be able to kind of lead execution delivery teams. It was a natural choice for me to kind of pivot to a much more managerial role, and opportunities seemed much more in that job family, compared to the architecture roles, which are pretty minimal in all organizations, right? Unless you're a very large enterprise, you don't have teams of hundreds of architects, right? It's teams of tens or 20s that cater to the enterprise organization itself. So the pool itself coming into technology is small. And then within that, when women start their career, they have a fork, and most of them probably tend to lean towards the managerial path, because you're roughly about 8 to 10 years in your career by the time you're seasoned enough that you're gaining the skills either to take the managerial role or kind of step into an architecture job family. And usually that's the time when you're starting to have a family or raising kids. You're dealing with becoming a caregiver, if that's the case. With all of that going on, there is just such a uphill kind of a battle to kind of enter an arena that's very small. The number of roles are minimal, and there isn't, to Geeta's point, there are not that many architecture leaders, women architecture leaders, who are seeking to bring on more talent into that job family, right? So I think those are some of the challenges from my own experience. So,
excellent points. Lisa, what are your thoughts?
Well, I echo both Geeta's and Prabhitha's comments, but I also want to call out that some of the skill sets we don't really know what they are. So negotiation and leadership and those kind of things, especially if there's sort of a perception that you're going to be in IT as a developer or something and move to architecture from that point, that a lot of people don't have those skills. So the mix of the businessy and the techie side is a little unusual, and I think we are getting traction with getting more women into IT in general, and I think that is definitely an extension of that, and it goes all the way back to STEM, but getting that confidence in our understanding of abstract concepts and then being able to talk about those is really, really rare. And I also think like COVID kind of paused that too. And I know it's just like maybe 2 or 3 years, but I think it really had an effect. And lack of mentorship. So I know that the only reason that I'm in this role is because I had some amazing mentors and people who saw something in me that I didn't know. So I just want to call those things out too.
Fantastic. And I love these points you're bringing up. We'll come back to maybe how you get into the role and some of these skills. And I see there's a question over there in the chat already on that. But first, let's just ground on what is the benefit of diversity in architecture for organizations and for the architecture profession as a whole. Prathibha?
Yeah, I think the architecture practice has been shifting more to what they say as the left, right? Like predominantly maybe 10 years ago. Geeta may be able to chime in because she has 2 decades of experience. I think a lot of enterprise architecture practices was stood up as technical competencies, technical domain focused, and you're sourcing talent that are, subject matter experts in those technical domains. And some of the traits that we look for is very assertive, can speak loudly, can bring the technical expertise to the table, right? A little bit of the command and control type of, construct in terms of how the architecture practices were built. But over the last 5 to 8 years, I think there is a significant shift in how architecture practices are being viewed on, what value they should be bringing to the table, which means it's less about the technical competencies. They are important, but it's now about moving it all the way to the left to at the stage of even the idea or the product feature conception, and trying to draw that piece out into the actual design and implementation aspects. So in order to do that, the key skills required, yes, all the subject matter expertise, the technical domain expertise are one of those aspects, but more importantly are some of the soft skills with respect to building the network, collaborating with your business partners, being able to storytell, which women are good at, networking, influencing. The ability to influence without authority that we keep hearing is an important trait for this specific job family. I think those are very complementary skills that women have traditionally done really well, in addition to becoming experts in their own domain, the technical competencies. I think it will be a very healthy complementary skill set when we have a diverse gender representation in the architecture community.
Wonderfully said. Lisa, your thoughts?
Just a couple. So I think in general, emotional intelligence and cognitive empathy is something that is vital for the architectural role, is at least what I've seen in, and as a developer, what I experienced in the more positive relationships. And I don't know that that's like, there has been really good training out until more of the DE&I company focus. So I think that's changing it a little bit, like our expectations. And yeah, I think the benefits is just, the social awareness and just sort of the patchwork quilt of, the broader perspectives and variety.
Yeah, absolutely. Geeta.
Yeah, I think Prathibha and Lisa really both excellent points, right? I would only complement that with the thought process. I think we all think very differently. Like, I mean, everybody based on background. So I think about diversity. Of course, not to gender is one thing, like women and men, but also like that's why who came up from what path. Because if, like Pratibha, you came, you said you have a business analyst, product owner to now running data, right? Imagine how powerful is that you're asking those critical questions as a business analyst. What are we doing? That critical thinking, asking the right question, framing the problem before handing over, right? So I think now you can do shift left to shift right, both. So I think that perspectives, if we don't have the diverse background and also different level of engineering, sometimes we think like enterprise architect you have to have this 15, 20 years of experience. Not always, right? You need that new ways of thinking, because especially in today's age, AI, Gen AI age, there are so many things going to be different. We don't know what the world will be tomorrow, right? So that mindset bringing in, if we don't have diversity just in the team composition, period, no matter, not just architecture, I think we are screwed, right? I think that's where I think about that perspectives matter, right? And a good architect who can see all these perspectives, actually bring all these viewpoints together, right? And I think we talked about like naturally that EQ gets more important, right? Helping people to, and empathy is a part of an architect role, bringing people together, alignment, strategy to reality. How can you do if you're not aligned on the North Star, right? You could agree to disagree, but you have to commit to execute, right? So I think all those things cannot happen. I mean, it should not be, I hope the world we live in, it is not even a question. It just becomes a de facto that all our fingers are not equal, right? We still live and we get, we become more functional just because we have different organs in our body.
That's right. I love what you all are saying so much. This diversity of perspective, diversity of the abilities we bring to the table, and this coinciding with the evolution of the architecture discipline to focus more upfront, as you're saying, shifting left to be more focused on, strategy, right, as we're, coming over in business direction. But I also think it's coinciding with the evolution of the world, isn't it? Our connectedness, needing to think about the future and what does modern leadership and modern organizations really need to do and how we need to think. So I think that's amazing. And I just want to say, you all have said being a technology expert is not the top skill here, right? And Geeta, you mentioned how fast things are changing, right? Those things can be learned. Yeah.
Yes.
Let's take a question from Eva here. Eva, to any of you, feel free to answer. What have you done to get good at or educate yourself around executive negotiation? Maybe it's books or videos or podcasts or any breakthroughs, or just anybody want to share on that?
Really good question.
Go ahead,
Lisa.
There's a couple books that like audiobooks and just regular books that I have seen that have either affirmed or brought new perspectives. And some of them are like Brene Brown's Dare to Lead. Another one would be Fundamentals of Software Architecture, really kind of affirmed what I thought I might be doing on a day-to-day basis. And that actually helps me with confidence, especially with making decisions and figuring out sort of best practices and the trade-offs. Another one is The Humble Inquiry, I think it's called. And it basically helps give different ideas of way to ask questions or ask for help.
Love it.
Yeah, and I'll just add, and I'm actually going through a business simulation training as we speak, like at here, right? And one of the things I learned today is like uh, using some phrases to start the conversation when you have a difference in opinion, like, very simple, right? Hey, the best thing about this, the most, what if about this, the one thing I'm worried about. Some of those, like just negating a little bit, like starting the conversation in a way that opens the other side to be more open to negotiation, right? Don't say no right up front, right? So it's all about how you say. And there are some common tactics around, like using 3 to 5 phrases to start the conversation that already brings the people, like gets people like at ease, right? Okay, here she comes, like not confronting with me, but you might be very well confronting, right? I think, and a lot of these, actually, the books that Lisa mentioned are great, but also I think if you get an opportunity to shadow someone, nothing like being seen in action, right? If you like, and it doesn't have to be men or women, somebody, even you watch like maybe, you know a Squawk Box, or you watch like Jim Cramer drilling somebody in Mad Money, and see how a good interviewer will tackle that and change into what he or she wants to talk about. I would say, from podcast, don't restrict yourself to an architecture talk. Learn from real life, run from political show, run from how people debate.
Yeah,
don't
great
don't throw
recommendation.
chairs at people, but
I love it. Prathibha?
Yeah, I was just gonna add. I think the most I learned were from either former or informal mentors, like people that I shadow and really look up to. And again, they don't need to be your direct leadership or even in technology. I think, Geeta, your point of like go and observe everybody, even outside, pick up cues from the outside world in a different profession, very profound, right? So there are some outside technology, interesting podcasts, as you mentioned, journalists that you talk to, news anchors that, you really pick up most of the skills from those types of conversations, and anybody that you can get to within an organization to allow you, right, to be part of some of those conversations. And they will be happy to, right? I've never run into an occasion where I've asked to be part of it. I want to be a fly on the wall. Uh, I'm impressed as to kind of how you go through the negotiation techniques, and I learn from you. They've always been very willing, even if it is a board conversation, right? They can swoop me in and stuff.
Awesome. Great wisdom and great question. Thank you, Eva. Yeah. Yeah. So, how do aspiring people break into a career in architecture? How do you get started? Are there multiple paths in, Lisa? What do you think?
That's a good question. So I think there's definitely multiple paths. It's what I find it makes it kind of difficult is it isn't written in stone what the role is. So you have to kind of go in with a leap of faith and talk to people, ask anytime you can demo your or talk to architects, like build relationships with them and learn and observe. And I would say turn up your opportunity detectors and really listen. And I think there's probably opportunities for many people to shadow just to sort of see if they like it, or just get in there with your jump in with both feet and try something, even if it's just like a shadowing or a week or something like that. But I think talking and having good mentorship is key.
Yeah, great perspective. Prathibha?
Yeah, and I think this is where traditionally women are probably a little bit more hesitant and very much more modest about the skills that they have, that they wouldn't venture to ask for, hey, can I try this? Right. So in most cases, it's probably an opportunity because it doesn't need to be in the centralized enterprise architecture organization. Architect roles exist in a federated manner across the organization, various teams, and people can create opportunities for you to be able to play that role, even if you're wearing a different hat today. And so one thing I've found is, can you step in when you see an opportunity, or just even ask, right? I would like to try this. And then Lisa's point of, can you see a mentor, right? Can you work with a peer in the architecture organization and learn from how they are kind of going about their day, and learn from those skill sets, and use that as part of your learning process as well. But the key thing is to ask and not hesitate until you feel like I have gained all the skills needed to become an architect. You don't need to, right? So just jump in. If you want to try it out, I think go seek that. So
Yeah. Geeta?
Yeah, I think I'll just add great points, both of you. I mean, I would say don't be afraid to ask questions, and don't be afraid to say, hey, I don't know what you do, can you explain me? Be it that company CTO, CA, chief architect, or anybody. First step is just taking that step to that you are interested in it, express that interest, right? I would tell you how I became that. I said 20 years back, I became the like enterprise architect. I was a rookie engineer turning into by asking question. We are a distributor. We don't make anything. We just buy and sell. How difficult that could be. Somebody said, okay, okay, sit here. Let me explain. And that opened my eyes. I started with actually enterprise architecture with business capability map, understanding, and that actually really make me curious about, hey, this is actually a profession where you can actually talk to the CEO, talk to the engineer, and anybody in between. And it is okay to, I ask a lot of questions. And it became that, like, not questioning, of course, like really curiosity and understanding what we do as a business and being able to travel from there to all the way down. So I would just say, along with what Jessica and Lisa said, please just be open-minded, show your curiosity, and you should be able to ask questions to anyone and say, I just want to learn about it, right? And then other thing I would say, if there is any strategic initiatives you see, usually any transformation projects that are happening, there'll be some elements of big architecture. Say, hey, I want to stretch myself and be a part of it. Pratibha's point, 99% of the time somebody will say, yes, do you want to be part of this?
Can I add one more small tidbit? There's something I forgot to mention is so there's self-awareness that so understand sort of where you are in the org, and just really focus on that a little bit, and then also own your development plan. So I don't know if everybody has development plans, but I wasn't sure what I wanted to do. So I saw like someone else being a journey person for a solution architect as a software engineer. So for one PI, I just said to my manager, I'm like, can I add that? I want to do that. Like, how do I get into that role? And she kind of asked some questions behind the scenes. And while that role is very different, it still gave me a little bit of a glimpse of what architects do. So
Wonderful. Wonderful. I love this openness, curiosity, just do it. Like, these are the skills we need anyway, but you're really breaking down, I think, some of those barriers or those fears that people have in this architecture role. And this is exactly what we need in architecture anyway, right? These are hallmarks of architects. So well said. So what can organizations do then to bring more women into architecture? And let's maybe take this in two parts. What can organizations do? And then I'll ask you, what do we need to do as well? So please start with what can organizations do to bring more women into architecture?
I can go. I think you were breaking a little bit. I'm not sure I could hear you properly, but organizations do. I would say, like, some of the things that organization I have been, we have done is you can create a, I would say women in leadership or something like focusing on the purpose of what you want to achieve. With that, create a, program, focused program, taking a cohort of maybe high performing people that you would like to experiment with, but tie it back with very clear outcomes. It's not just, hey, you just go hang out for 3 weeks or whatever, but give them an assigned outcome project, maybe part of some teams, but create that as a focus group that we are going to learn, we are going to experiment, and we are going to see how we will bring them into what the craft and the skills required for architecture, right? I think that's something I would say I have seen it working, and I think it is very easy. There are usually some programs or the other for growing in different tracks, and I think especially for architecture track, any organization should be able to do that.
Outstanding. Prathibha, what do you think? What can organizations do to bring more women into architecture?
There are definitely lots of things that has to be done in these organizations. One is, I think we were talking about this a little bit, right? Both Lisa and Geeta mentioned about be very deliberate about defining the job family and the career path. Right, there is a lot of time spent on other job families, but I think not organizations. One, do they do a good job of defining the job family and a career path in general, right? And specifically for the architecture track, because architecture organizations go through an evolution, usually morphs over a period of time. So I think it's important to give the clarity on what that job family is, what do people do, so that it's not that mystical thing, right? That people don't understand. And what is their career path? How can they grow once they enter into the architecture profession, right? What upward movement is possible, because that's also important for somebody breaking into that field. He touched on hire more women in leadership roles, right? Not just architecture leadership roles, and specifically architecture leadership roles. The other thing I think it's important. I've seen certain organizations really get good at making sure the candidate pipeline for any roles that they have has a very strong gender mix, and they're very deliberate about it, right? They have to pay extra attention to it, and the hiring managers, us here, leading architecture organizations, should make sure that the candidate pipeline has a strong gender mix. I think there are statistics that if you have more number of women in the pipeline, and especially if you come to the shortlist stage, at least if you have 2 women shortlisted, there is a potential that they will get hired into the organization. So that strong pipeline is also very important. And one last thing, I've been a strong proponent of early talent programs in all my current and previous organization. How can we use that as a chassis to build awareness? Because usually you're hiring them for engineering roles, analyst roles, data scientist type of roles. But how about architecture? I've done a few in my past and in my present role, and those are really good ways for people to come and learn. And I have been usually trying to look at that composition for internship, job rotations, early talent programs, and make sure that we are building awareness and education through that channel as well. So.
Yeah, excellent. Lisa.
Oh yeah, I love all the points that you guys brought up. One thing I also think I didn't quite hear, but intentionally adding to leadership's goals. I do love the idea of going into the early talent program. So bring in the interns. Let's talk to them. Let's bring them into projects and include them. But yeah, build it into the goals of exposing and encouraging and mentoring.
Outstanding. I love your suggestions. And they're very doable. They're very actionable. And what I hear in all of them is we just need the intent, right? We just need the intent to do it. Yeah. Just a reminder for everyone who's watching, if you have other questions or comments, please put them in the chat. We'll do our best to get to them. So a question for any or all of you. We talked about organizations, but what can the architecture profession, right, the global architecture profession do to create pathways for women in architecture both today and tomorrow? Anyone want to jump on that one?
I think the great thing that's happening is we now have Voya and organizations as such, events such as this one creating awareness. I think there needs to be more of such events as well as forums for women to kind of come, or potentially looking for change in roles for them to understand, because I think there is quite a bit of mysticism about the roles in architecture roles in an organization, and it would help for people to talk to those who are actually doing that and to demystify all of it. I think that's an aspect the architecture profession or the architecture community globally that should be able to kind of continue to promote a lot more sponsorship potentially for the events and the forums. I think would be really fantastic. So
Wonderful.
So, absolutely. I think along with not just the women in architecture, right? Like all the, whatever, 82% or 83% or 87% male architects that are out there, let them make it also a intention about helping people, other women, to come and be part of their community and take a chance with. I would just say, like, may intentional and take a chance. Take a chance, give somebody some training. So I think every that craft, and we are so, like, with Chief Architect Forum and Women in Architecture, we are a community across the globe. And when you are one of the best person in the global community spreading the awareness, right? So I think we can just start doing our job building, and each of us, I think all the stuff that we talked about, bringing people in, like, early stage, I have done that too, getting interns to fresh graduates and bringing them apart and coaching, training, and helping them. So just spending the time. I think we just have to do it, get awareness, spread the word, and every chance we get, help people to understand what it is. I think demystifying architecture, and it is actually about, truly about actionable. It is not about drawing boxes only. I think those things will get people more excited, and it is a data driven architecture, right? It is the knowledge graph that describes how, and the power of architecture and the superpowers that are needed, and women are rightly positioned with the inherent, like, genetically having those superpowers. I think we just have to tell the stories more.
Love it. Nicely said. Lisa, anything to add?
Yeah, I think just creating a psychologically safe space for people to be real and authentic and ask questions. And then when people make mistakes, get rid of the blame and shame kind of game, and just really use it as a learning. But again, that safe space is going to be critical, I think. So
Yeah. We have some wonderful questions here. And by the way, I just want to call out a point here from Eva, who says, I really appreciate the abundance mindset that you all naturally share. And I think that's just a little bit illustrative, right, of the power of diversity. And anyway, I like that. But here's a question on master degree programs. For someone who's interested in enterprise architecture and going to graduate school, are there any specific master degree programs you would recommend that that you would consider, that we should consider?
Whynde, why don't you take this one? You are very plugged in into, right?
Yeah. I mean, I can say for sure, and I think there's one in particular that's very relevant to our strategy and execution. So Penn State in the U.S. is a real leader in this space, and there is a master's program, and they have business architecture as a facilitator of strategy execution has really worked into that. And there's also an executive education program that is based on architecture as well. I know there are other master degree programs. I know there are definitely some in places in Europe. Anybody else want to comment further on that one?
Yes,
I would say soft skills, the storytelling and negotiation. I know I struggle with, and if I were in a master's program, I would definitely be taking those.
Sure. Yeah.
And one of the things we have started, we, like, as an experiment, is just, I teach one class in CMU's integrated innovation class as an experiment to talk about enterprise architecture for innovation, and that went really well. But we're thinking about basically formalizing some courses. It just hasn't happened. But I don't know many universities really offering enterprise architecture per se.
No.
So
yeah, I was racking my brain around that as well. I had looked up some just to take a certification course, right? Like an add-on, because I've done 2 master's program and I'm like, I don't think so. I'm going to do one more after this, but I couldn't run into anything that was meaningful. But this might be Wendy, what you were asking, what can the architecture profession do in general, right? I've found that even this is less so architecture, but even data programs, there are lots of data science related curriculums. So, and there are ways to work with universities to kind of structure some of their syllabus and curriculum and, lesson plans as well. So there might be an opportunity for the organization, such as the one that you head up, Wendy, to influence and bring that a little bit more mainstream. So great
Well said.
question.
Yeah. And 100%, I will tell you that is definitely part of pathway building. We haven't entirely leaned into it, but very, very well said all. Yeah. I know we're coming up on 5 minutes. We'll maybe at least take one more question here, and then I'll ask you all for some closing comments. But are there any catered certification or course paths that combine core skills like finance, accounting, strategy, negotiation, leadership, not for frameworks like TOGAF, but something that would help mid-managers to learn those skills needed? Any other ads there?
I haven't seen, but I was just thinking, like, one of the institutes like ISA, ISA does a lot of like catered courses to help architecture profession combining both different skills that are needed. I'm not sure, is there a specific one that combines all the things that were called out? But maybe I was checking on that to see, or create one, basically.
Yeah, I was going to say that's maybe something that we're missing is really a guideline on the core skills for the industry. And it's such a fuzzy, a lot of roles across companies are different and it's fuzzy. So it's really a people, there's a lot of people skills involved, and getting comfortable with that and practicing is, I think, one thing that can help.
Yeah. There are lots of self-paced, Udemy, Pluralsight has some of those soft skill courses, but as you said, Lisa, it's for a wide variety of roles. Are you a manager? Are you an analyst? Are you actually an executive? I don't think so. There are any that's tailored to, hey, you're breaking into an architecture profession here. Here is kind of a set of courses around the soft skills that you need to learn. What I have been trying to do in my kind of last couple of roles is to see if we can tap into organizations such as Gartner that can bring some of that very niche kind of material together and do that along with the architecture teams themselves, right? And we focused in on very specific areas, right? And that might be a very focused way to get started, not a certifications course, but you're learning and you're making it relevant to the architecture profession. Yeah.
And I like the spirit of this, right? It's how do we aggregate? How do we put the holistic piece together? We said there are some bodies out there like ISA that do that. The Guild does it from a BizArch perspective. There's opportunity for others. And I've seen architecture organizations do this very well, where they create their own learning path with different things. So I know there are some more questions out there. We just got 2 minutes, so I want to make sure to leave some time. There is a question: is the talk Geeta was referring to at the start open to WIA or others?
So this is I don't know if it is the talk I mentioned about CMU. I can share that. I can share that. Yes.
Perfect. And anyone interested in the Women in Architecture, the wheel we've been talking about, it's free. It's for women in architecture and all of the allies and advocates. It's named after the mission we're trying to achieve, and it's thewomeninarchitecture.org. So
tomorrow, 10 a.m.
Oh, perfect. Thank you, Geeta. So with that, I know we got a minute left, but please, some final closing words to leave us with. Lisa, what would you like to share?
Just thank you. I've really had fun thinking about the questions and sharing and hearing what others say and being included. So it's been a good experience. Thanks.
Fantastic. Prathibha.
Yeah, I think this is a very important topic. I'm pretty sure we can come back again and talk more about it. There's a lot that I learned and, piqued my curiosity. Hey, are there courses out there? How can I get a certification around it? Very, very interesting and relevant questions here. Would love to be out there and answer any questions online, offline. And I'm thankful for being, for the opportunity here to be part of this group and having this conversation. Thank you.
Wonderful. And Geeta.
First of all, thank you so much. I will only say I saw a question from Eva. What do we do better? I think we do a lot better, but I think I would just say what I do better is ask very tough questions, keeping my face very straight, right? Don't get fooled by my smiling face. I'm very, very tough. So that's what I do better than him.
Absolutely love it. Love it. Well, we are at time. So thank you all so much for just such a incredible conversation, insightful. Thank you for the generosity of sharing your wisdom. Thank you for everything you do every day and for all of you out there, for all you do every day. So great event. We are proud to be part of it. So with that, we'll close out this panel and enjoy the closing session. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, everyone. Bye.